For decades, our gaze has been fixed on the stars, searching not merely for new planets or radio signals, but for anomalies. We look for those rare instances where the cosmos refuses to follow its own rules. And now, the James Webb Space Telescope may have uncovered precisely that. What started as a standard survey of 3 Atlas, only the third interstellar object ever recorded in our solar system, has evolved into something much stranger, much darker, and infinitely more significant. Deep in the freezing void beyond Mars, Webb detected something impossible. It wasn't just light, it was artificial light. It detected a glow that behaves unlike any asteroid or comet, a signature that defies the known physics of reflection and refraction. Now, astrophysicists and astronomers are left facing a single question that chills them to the bone. What, exactly, is 3 Atlas? Stick with us as we analyze the data that has just reignited the oldest and most terrifying inquiry of all time. Are we alone? 3 Atlas first appeared as a dim speck at the edge of the solar system, following a trajectory forbidden to local objects. It was clearly interstellar, birthed far beyond our sun's gravitational embrace, flung across the galaxy by unknown forces, and now drifting silently through our neighborhood. Initially, it was dismissed as a cosmic curiosity, much like its predecessors, Oumuamua and Borisov. But even in the earliest images, something felt wrong. Unlike most interstellar visitors, 3 Atlas was unusually bright, and not in a way that made sense. Its magnitude didn't align with its estimated composition or size. It shimmered with an unnatural consistency, neither fading as expected nor flaring with any signs of dust release or outgassing. Traditional comets brighten in bursts as ice sublimates, but this object remained steady, as if powered from within. Telescopes around the globe turned to track it, and Webb, with its unrivaled ability to pierce the infrared spectrum, was brought in to decode the mystery. What it saw changed everything. Perched a million miles from Earth at the Lagrange point, the James Webb Space Telescope was designed to see the unseen, to cut through starlight and reveal what hides in the shadows. Its gaze upon 3 Atlas was supposed to clarify the confusion. Instead, it amplified it. The telescope's instruments picked up a centralized thermal emission that correlated with no natural reflection of sunlight. Typically, a comet shines because the sun's rays bounce off ice and dust. But 3 Atlas displayed an internal heat signature, something radiating outward from the core. This wasn't scattered light. It was emitted light. The thermal mapping unveiled a pattern that followed no known distribution curve for natural objects. It pulsed faintly and irregularly, and most disturbingly, it seemed to cycle at intervals. That subtle rhythm suggested design rather than randomness. Scientists at the European Space Agency and NASA proposed exotic explanations: subsurface friction, radioactive decay, alien isotopes. But as the data accumulated, those theories collapsed. The only consistent explanation remaining was the one nobody wanted to document. This object might be powered. As data from terrestrial observatories, Hubble, and Webb piled up, a profile of 3 Atlas began to emerge, and it looked nothing like any known celestial body. Its trajectory was too precise to be chaotic, as if it were choosing its path, making subtle adjustments through gravity wells. Its rotation was unnaturally stable, featuring a tumbling motion that defied standard inertial drift. And the lack of a cometary tail, even when passing near solar radiation, suggested a casing or shell, perhaps something shielding it from the heat. Then came the most controversial finding. The albedo, or surface reflectivity, was measured to be nearly perfect in certain areas, approaching that of polished metal. Not dust, not ice, not rock metal. The implications hit the astronomical community like a shockwave. If it was metallic, structured, and emitting energy, we were no longer observing a natural object. We were observing technology. Suddenly, whispers of probe, beacon, craft, and even artifact filled the hallways. The notion that this might be an alien spacecraft was no longer confined to conspiracy forums. It was quietly circulating in encrypted institutional emails. Perhaps the most damning piece of evidence wasn't the trajectory, the thermal emissions, or the strange metallic signature. It was the light. Photometric analysis revealed something chilling. The light emanating from 3 Atlas was focused in a narrow spectral band. In other words, this wasn't a broad, natural reflection of sunlight, but a controlled emission of specific wavelengths. This is precisely what we do with laser communication systems, LED arrays, and spacecraft signal beacons. Furthermore, this band included frequencies frequently used in guidance and communication systems on Earth. Not only that, but the light's intensity seemed to respond ever so slightly to solar radiation, as though an onboard system was adjusting in real time. It flickered not at random, but with a strange intermittent pulse. Astronomers ran the data through known signal models. The results were inconclusive, but not meaningless. Some claimed the pulses resembled binary sequences. Others suggested a rotating power source. But the conclusion was undeniable. This was not a passive object. It was doing something deliberate, and we were watching it live. As the data poured in, a team of astrophysicists from Harvard and MIT ran a deep signal analysis on the electromagnetic emissions coming from 3 Atlas. At first glance, the frequencies appeared random, just noise scattered across the spectrum. But when they applied Fourier transforms to isolate cyclical patterns, something emerged. Buried in the static, hidden like a whisper beneath the chaos, was a structured, repeating pulse too precise to be natural. It wasn't a standard binary code, nor a typical modulation used in human tech, but it bore the unmistakable fingerprint of intentional encoding. Some speculated it could be a beacon, a repeating broadcast meant for receivers not of earthly origin. Others theorized it was telemetry, a constant data stream sent back to wherever this object came from. The unsettling part was this. Whatever the message was, it hadn't changed since Webb first detected it. It was as if 3 Atlas wasn't trying to talk to us, but to someone else, and maybe that someone had already heard it. News of the discovery spread rapidly through the highest tiers of defense and scientific institutions. A confidential report, circulated internally at NASA and later leaked to an unnamed journalist, revealed that top officials were already coordinating with global space agencies to assess whether 3 Atlas posed a threat. Some scientists argued it was benign, an ancient probe, perhaps centuries old, on a pre-programmed route through the stars. Others weren't so optimistic. They raised questions no one could answer. If it is transmitting, who is receiving? If it emits light, does it also have propulsion? If it is here by design, why now? The report mentioned the possibility, however remote, that 3 Atlas was not just passing through, but observing, tracking electromagnetic fields, planetary alignments, or even advanced civilizations. This possibility ignited panic behind the scenes because if this object wasn't alone, then something else might be on the way. Something that sent it. Further investigation into the luminosity of 3 Atlas led to a revolutionary hypothesis. The object wasn't just emitting energy, it was harvesting it. The way the object's light output fluctuated with its proximity to the sun, combined with the apparent lack of chemical reactions, supported the idea that it might be utilizing a photonic absorption system or solar collection array embedded beneath its surface. A group of theorists postulated that the dust cloud surrounding the object could serve a dual function: camouflage to mask its artificial structure, and a medium through which to absorb solar radiation. If true, this suggests 3 Atlas is a self-sustaining craft designed to travel indefinitely through deep space, refueling itself as it moves from star to star. This concept aligns with known theoretical models of interstellar probes, machines that remain dormant for centuries, activating only when they reach a star system worth investigating. And if our solar system triggered that activation, then the message was received. As international space agencies scrambled for answers, one truth became increasingly clear: we are not ready. Despite decades of speculation about extraterrestrial contact, our systems, philosophical, scientific, and political, are wildly unequipped to process what 3 Atlas might represent. No official statements have been made, but internal documents leaked from agencies in Japan, France, and Brazil all hinted at similar conclusions. This object might not be a mere anomaly, but a first encounter in slow motion. And unlike what Hollywood taught us, there was no landing, no sudden appearance in the sky, no immediate answers. Only light, only data, only silence. Webb continues to observe the object every day. And yet, every answer it delivers seems to spawn 2 more questions. If this is contact, it is contact on their terms, not ours. Distant, quiet, unsettling. And that may be the most terrifying aspect of all, because what we are witnessing may not be an invitation. It may be surveillance, and we may have already been seen. Just when astronomers believed 3 Atlas had settled into a predictable trajectory, something unexpected happened. Its luminosity spiked dramatically. This wasn't a gradual increase caused by proximity to the sun. It was a sudden flare captured in real time by the James Webb Telescope and confirmed by several ground-based observatories. The object's brightness surged by nearly 40% in under 2 minutes, then stabilized at a new, elevated level. No natural explanation fit the data. There was no impact event, no solar wind interaction, no fragmentary disintegration. It was as if someone, or something, had flipped a switch. The flare wasn't just visible. It carried a change in the object's thermal signature, almost as if systems had powered on. Theorists proposed a chilling possibility, that this object had entered an awakened phase, triggered either by our own observations or its proximity to our star. And if this flare was an intentional act, then it was meant to be seen. Shortly after this anomalous brightening, orbital calculations from multiple space agencies detected something else. 3 Atlas was no longer following its projected path precisely. It had shifted slightly, subtly, but measurably. Gravity alone couldn't account for the alteration. Even solar radiation pressure, often used as a scapegoat for small course changes in lightweight objects, didn't add up. This shift was deliberate. More unsettling was where the new trajectory pointed, deeper into the solar system, with an adjusted inclination bringing it closer to the plane of Earth's orbit. The object was no longer just passing through. It had, in effect, changed lanes. Some scientists cautioned restraint, calling it a gravitational anomaly. But others saw the shift as a maneuver, a subtle course correction that no rock or comet had ever made. And if 3 Atlas was capable of even limited navigation or propulsion, it meant we were no longer observing a relic. We were watching a vessel in motion, a vessel with intent. As the object passed within range of spectroscopic instruments aboard Hubble and Webb, scientists began to detect compounds and elements that raised more red flags. Traces of rare Earth elements, highly reflective alloys, and most shockingly, spectral absorption lines resembling compounds never before cataloged in our periodic table were detected. These were not the kinds of materials found in a frozen chunk of interstellar rock. They were engineered, or at the very least, synthesized under conditions unknown to nature. One spectral profile matched no known chemical process, but closely resembled theoretical compounds proposed in quantum material labs. Substances thought to exist only under the influence of quantum confinement or intense magnetic fields. This discovery implied either unfathomable age, suggesting the object predates human civilization by millennia, or highly advanced recent manufacture by a civilization far beyond our own. The nature of the materials spoke louder than any signal, because even if we couldn't decode the message, the messenger itself was unnatural. With mounting evidence pointing to a non-natural origin, governments and agencies began reacting, not publicly, but with unmistakable urgency. Research teams were quietly reassigned. Encryption levels on observatory networks increased. A sudden, unexplained surge in satellite recalibrations was noted across multiple continents. Spacefaring nations initiated discrete contingency discussions behind closed doors. One leaked document from an international defense consortium suggested that 3 Atlas might not be a lone visitor, but a scout. The object's stable rotation, unusual structure, and apparent capability to remain operational across interstellar distances indicated a design consistent with long-term observation probes. But if it was scouting, what was it looking for? And more disturbingly, what might come next? Across military command centers, universities, and observatories, one terrifying consensus was forming. We were no longer alone in the universe, and the first contact might not be a conversation, but an evaluation. As speculation reached a boiling point, a bold team at the SETI Institute decided to take the risk no one else would. They transmitted a focused radio pulse directly toward the projected location of 3 Atlas. The message contained the periodic table, universal mathematical constants, and basic visual representations of humanity. It was meant to be a cosmic handshake, a cautious hello. Days passed, then a week. No response. But just when the experiment was about to be archived as another unanswered call into the dark, a monitoring station in Chile registered something strange. A narrow-band return pulse, distorted, off-frequency, but unmistakably timed to mirror the original message. It wasn't a reply in language. It wasn't an echo. It was a ping, a return signal with just enough variance to imply it wasn't a passive reflection. It had been processed. It had been sent back. But what shook the SETI team most wasn't the signal itself. It was the timing. Because the response came precisely 72 hours after transmission, to the second. It meant something had not only received our message, it had calculated the delay and answered deliberately. Following the detection of the return ping, observatories around the globe began experiencing technical anomalies. Webb's infrared instruments showed erratic thermal mapping for the first time since launch. Hubble's gyroscopic sensors registered microfluctuations despite stable orientation. Ground-based telescopes experienced what were initially dismissed as software glitches, inexplicable pixel distortions, misaligned star charts, and frozen data streams, precisely when focused on 3 Atlas. But these glitches didn't happen randomly. They occurred in synchronized windows, as if coordinated, as if someone or something didn't want us looking too closely. A theory emerged from a black ops think tank buried deep within the European Space Agency. The object wasn't just emitting signals, it was jamming us, interfering selectively. The implications were staggering. A passive visitor doesn't hide its identity. A scout does. If the object was actively managing what we could see, and when we could see it, then we weren't really watching it. We were being allowed to, and then silence. Within days of the signal event and the technical malfunctions, updates from Webb were delayed, restricted, and eventually rerouted. Public logs were no longer accessible. The European Space Agency released a vague statement about instrument recalibration. NASA simply stopped commenting. Even reputable journals that had been covering 3 Atlas closely began retracting stories or publishing neutral summaries devoid of detail. The astrophysics community was split. Some believed the agencies were working to validate the discovery before going public. Others believed something far darker, that the truth had already been confirmed and was now being contained. The few remaining independent observatories began releasing raw data streams to the public, but these were quickly drowned in a flood of speculation and misinformation. What was once a global scientific mystery had become a strategic asset, and history has shown us what happens when governments declare a discovery classified. Truth dies in silence. In a last-ditch effort to understand what they were observing, a coalition of mathematicians and astronomers turned to probability theory and pattern recognition. They weren't looking for communication anymore. They were looking for proof of intent. And that is when they discovered the most terrifying pattern of all. The object's path through the solar system, while seemingly natural, mirrored a Fibonacci arc when plotted against planetary positions, an ancient spiral of proportional beauty found throughout nature, and coincidentally, in many Earth-based communication protocols. Furthermore, the timing of its course corrections, the light flares, and even the ping response correlated with prime number sequences. The odds of this occurring naturally are astronomically low. These patterns were chosen. It meant this object, 3 Atlas, wasn't just flying through the solar system. It was navigating with mathematical precision, as if following a schedule or a map. A few theorists now whispered the unthinkable. This might not be an interstellar probe. It might be an interstellar message, not made of symbols or sound, but of behavior. And we had just decoded the first word. As the dust of confusion begins to settle, one truth remains impossible to ignore. 3 Atlas was never just a rock. From the signal it returned to the unnatural light it emitted. From the calculated change in trajectory to the rare materials. Every piece of this enigma points to a single, uncomfortable conclusion. We have not been alone for a very long time. And perhaps we were never meant to know. The James Webb Telescope, built to peer into the birth of galaxies, may have instead caught a glimpse of something designed to look back. Something ancient, deliberate, and watching. Not from the safety of a distant star system, but from the threshold of our own celestial neighborhood. And yet, silence reigns. The data is withheld. The agencies refuse to speak. The world, it seems, has been deemed not ready. But we saw the light. We tracked the path. And now we ask the question that terrifies even the most rational minds. What happens next? Was 3 Atlas simply passing through, cataloging our little world before continuing its voyage? Or was it merely the first of many? A probe leading the way for something greater, something waiting for a signal to move forward. In the end, it may not matter whether 3 Atlas was a machine or something else entirely. What matters is that it came, it saw, and it responded. And now, somewhere in the cold, endless dark, something may be turning its attention toward the blue planet that blinked first. The countdown, perhaps, has already begun. And the universe once again reminds us, we are not the center. We are the observed. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.